Namaste. Hi, this is Sharline Vaz. I am so excited and I'm so honored to have Kalia Yang and Shannon Gibney. They have put together an amazing book of essays on miscarriage and infant loss. This is a topic that's very dear to my heart. I've been very open about miscarriages. Andy and I, we lost twins last year, and it's as a woman from India and as a mother, it's culturally for me and women from India, we don't talk about it. So for me, I've been very open about the loss of our babies on social media. But enough about me. I really want you guys to get to know Kalia and Shannon. Who is Kalia and who is Shannon?
Well, thank you first for having us.
Thank you so much.
This is a very hard topic, but it is one that all women and men, as our contributor Sung Yong Shin reminds us, all of us still come from the womb of a born female.
Yes.
So thank you.
Oh, that is so beautiful. You are correct, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as
First, who's Shannon?
Who is Shannon? Who is Shannon? Where in the world is Shannon? Who in the world is Shannon? So I'm a writer. I'm a professor at Minneapolis College, downtown Minneapolis. I'm a mother of two. I have an almost 10-year-old who's friends with your son as well. And I have a 5-year-old, also friends with Rex, one of your other
Rex misses her terribly.
I know.
He told me he was her she is his best girlfriend.
Oh, they love each other. They're so cute. Yes, they went to the same school together. So, I'm also an activist, and a lot of the things that I write about, and I think both Kalia and I have this in common in our work. We really want to create spaces to talk about things that culturally we don't necessarily talk about, right? As you say, from your cultural background, miscarriage and infant loss isn't talked about, but that's not just, from an Indian or Indian American perspective, from so many perspectives of women, in so many cultures. And families, we don't talk about this. Kalia and I both experienced losses. I had a stillbirth at 41 and a half weeks with my daughter's CNA, and I had the opportunity to write about that in the collection. And I don't know if you want to talk about your experience as well.
That'd be lovely. So tomorrow Kalia will be a 39-year-old woman. Today she's still 38. But she's also a writer and, like Shannon Gibney, a mother and also a woman who's had a miscarriage at 19 weeks. I own all of the things I am. Yes, I'm a writer. Yes, I'm a public speaker. Yes, I'm a teacher. But more than anything, I'm a human being working to build a better world. Not only for my children, but for all of the little ones who look toward us, with tremendous faith in their hearts, not fear. And I want to foster that faith in the work that I do. And so, beyond what God has honored here, all of my other work is still very much connected to love, to family, to what we have to leave behind. One day I will be an ancestor.
Yes, that's true. It's so poignant and true even in Indian culture and also in yours. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the book. I get goosebumps when I first started reading the book. It was so hard. I stopped because I couldn't stop crying. I just kept on crying and crying and crying. And one of the things a friend of mine recommended was that I do Nikema Levi Armstrong's class, which is 5 things white allies do wrong. The reason I miscarried was because I got into a stupid spat of sorts on a mom's group. And I think I just got overly aggravated, and all that stress led to the miscarriage. And it's unfortunate, but around that time you were compiling stories, and you reached out to me to write. And for me, I couldn't write it, but talk to me about why you're feeling the need to pull together all these different women's stories.
I mean, and I first want to honor, what you shared with us. I mean, we've heard not just from other women who are reading the book, and men who are reading the book, that it's very poignant, it's very emotional, it's very difficult, particularly if you've gone through a loss like this. You know, it takes a lot of bravery, I think, to really
Yes.
engage with the text. We have contributors actually who were incredibly brave to write their stories, and they were also at a point where they were ready. We're not always ready. It took me probably 3 years, I think, before I was even ready to approach Kalia about the possibility of putting this together, because it was
You
just...
approached me early on.
Did I?
It took you a longer time to connect with me again. Shortly after, about 3 to 6 months after, Shannon Gibney said, I'm looking everywhere for books that would reflect or speak to my experiences.
Exactly.
I know that you've had a miscarriage. Have you been looking? And I said, I too have been looking and not finding. And it was Shannon who said, would you ever be interested when we're ready, when our childbearing years are through? Because she understood at the very beginning that the way we look upon these experiences would differ, would change, would somehow, that the stories we would tell would be influenced and deeply impacted by the children that we would have or the children that we wouldn't have. And so we both waited until we knew that we were done. And then Shannon reached out to me 2 years ago and said, I'm ready. Are you? I took a deep breath and I said, yes. Because we understood that what we wanted to deliver into the world, in the place, you know, not to replace, but in the place of what we couldn't have. The life that we had tried to build within us, and I think within our communities, that this book could do some of that work. In that moment, you know, when Shannon says so beautifully, in the dark of the night when you're facing that wall,
Yep.
and you ask yourself what God is honored here. Yeah.
What is this? How could this be? I'm sure you had that experience, unfortunately,
It was-
losing.
Exactly, and you know, and in my case, I started looking for resources on, are there any counselors to talk about counselors from your community
Yes.
who can help you navigate, process what went through, because in my case, it was ridiculous racism
Yes.
that came from liberal women,
Yes.
and that was, till date, I cannot talk about it. For
Yes,
me, a
yeah.
part of me just shuts down,
Yes.
and and that's when a friend of mine reached out and said, you need to go and see Mrs. Armstrong's, or go attend her class. You should go read the book White Fragility and read Eloquent Rage.
Yes.
Which are
And,
wonderful books, both of them.
and then around that time, at the same time, you reached out and said, Shravan,
Yeah.
we need your story. And I said, I'm not ready.
Yeah. Which is totally, and I want to say that is totally, you know, and I'm so glad that I did that, but I'm also so glad that you then took stock of where you were and said, I'm not ready yet, you know, and I think.
But what you said was what, I'm so sorry I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
Because you asked me, that's when I started looking for resources, and I
Yes.
said, she's correct, Shannon is absolutely correct, there is nothing out there. And how can people, and I started asking questions within the Indian community and within amongst other communities. Have you miscarried because of some sort of racism, etc.? Because there are different top reasons for
Yes.
losing a child.
Yes.
Racism is not talked about.
Right.
No.
Well, and this is the thing, I mean, I think we're at this sort of fulcrum point right now. It's very interesting, it's very poignant, it's very difficult, but it's also an opportunity, right? That all fulcrum points are, where now we're getting a ton of research, a ton of more personal stories, particularly about Black women, but not just Black women, Native women,
Exactly.
you know, women of color, right? And our maternal health rates, the rates of death amongst our babies, and then of course just the general statistic that, you know, a fourth of all women, regardless of race, are going to have a miscarriage, right? And so, I mean, that's a tremendous loss that we don't talk about. My mother is a therapist, and she talks about how we are a grief-averse culture, right? And so what happens when you have a loss like this, and then it's compounded by this let's say, discursive narrative loss in the culture, meaning nobody is going to talk about it. And then further compounded by some of the things that you're talking about and some of our contributors in this book who are Native women and women of color talk about, which are the intersection of the racist, sexist,
Systemic.
yes, and I don't know if you maybe want to talk about, either some of our experiences briefly, because I know we don't want to go above time, but some of our experiences editing the pieces or our decision to make the book focused on the experiences of Native women and women of color.
Shannon and I think we were very clear early on that we wanted a representative book, but we also understood that beyond representation are cultures and the ways in which we conceive and practice family and community, that these things are going to channel and impact the writing. We both read books because we can find them by women of color and Native women, by white women. And those books were, and here we always say this respectfully, many of them, the quality of the writing and also the culture that they were coming from was a culture that just sought to say, my silent little angel, or my quiet, beautiful, perfect, that kind of language, and without getting to the raw and the essential process that we all experience, that our bodies go through. So we wanted in that way a very raw and real experience. But we also wanted writers who are willing to not only enter into that space, but reflect and think and feel through it with readers. Because I think there's a tremendous loneliness. After
there is a lot of loneliness, because who do you talk to and how do you open up to, and how do you, if you have a significant other, how do you, they are going through their own feelings, but you are so completely shut down, you do not want to ask them what they are going through. Was it very, you must have received a ton of stories.
Very quickly and very fast. We're both, Shannon likes to joke, we're no longer spring chicken, we're now season hen.
So proud season hen.
Yes.
Proud.
So we have different networks to draw on, but also Minnesota Women's Press helped us put forth the call.
They were fantastic.
So we were looking across the nation. We knew that it could be easily international, but we wanted a national collection to bring reality and light to the fact that in the U.S., more miscarriages and infant loss occur to women of color and Native women than any other group. This was a fact, and we wanted to highlight this fact.
And like the CDC, in fact, in the introduction, we talk about how the CDC has actually come out and said that a huge risk factor to having a baby, a healthy baby, and having the baby survive is being of the black race, quote unquote, being of black. I mean, that is amazing to me that they will come out and say that this is where we're at. Right now, right? And you'll see that in some of the stories, right? That some of the women will talk about that. But yeah, I think the big irony is sort of like in, let's say, white, Western, and definitely in our locality, Midwestern Minnesota culture, right? It's this idea that, well, we can't talk about the pain, we're gonna sort of like go around. But the irony of that, of course, as we know, women who've experienced this, and just any human being will know who is, sort of aware of how things really are and work with pain, especially, and life. You have to, the only way out is through. You have to go through it, right? There's no, you just have to, so that's what this book is about. And the woman, that we worked with, we had the opportunity and the gift. We both feel like it was just a vocation and an honor to work with the 24, 25 women.
24.
Yes, I always get it wrong, thank you. That contributed pieces to this. They just...
And this is an issue that goes way back, right? The book, it is about miscarriage, infant loss, but it is also about the tremendous love that women of color have for our children, born and unborn. In the instances of Native Americans, you have children who are taken away, physically away from their parents to all white institutions to become something other than, to divorce that relationship and that bond. In the case of the African American history in this country, it's a history built on slavery. Children are sold as if black mothers did not feel as deeply, could continue to live. In the case of Hmong women, of course, are boy soldiers, girl soldiers, 7, 8, 9, 10, and pictures are just surfacing. All these white soldiers who are dying, they're for the first time releasing their photos, and they're smiling, but you have all these kids with fear on their faces standing, close by in the clothes of grown men and women. And it's heartbreaking. And so it forces, yes, a confrontation between what is happening right now,
Yeah.
but what
On
has
the
brought us
border.
to this point.
On the border right
I
now.
am so glad you're talking about this, seriously.
You cannot read this book and say, oh my God, these women don't love their children, no matter what gods they believe in. I think it's,
Yes.
in that way, it explains perhaps the reason, part of the reason why our readings for this book have been so meager. People aren't coming to the events. The people who know of it, who need it, are looking for it, so that it's going off the shelves. But people are not coming to our events. Our editor says, I can put out a book about rock and roll. Easy, fill up the room. Shannon and I both know individually that we can, because we're now,
Season ends.
we can fill up a room individually with our books,
Yeah.
But with this one, both of us calling forth, the rooms, the readings have been really small. In that way, very holy though too. So it's like you learn all these things. This is not a book that neither of us or you would think is necessary.
Absolutely.
This is not a book that a writer says, I want to write that book one day, let it be me.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But it is a circumstance of living as women of color and Native women in this country, in this world.
This is wonderful to know. I would love to see how I can help fill out that room, and I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping we will be able to fill up this room. Hopefully a lot of women are watching this video. If you're not, please share it, because this is a topic only that needs to be spoken about, and this is a book we all need to be reading about. Let's see if I can do something about that.
Thank you,
so
Sharon.
much.
This is amazing, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for your activism. And your
This
work.
needs to be done. I did not know that. So people are not, so you've not had that many.
But it's also, again, a product of this sort of grief-averse culture, right? And so we've also been learning through the process too, right? Some people also don't want to grieve in public, right? So people are buying the book. We're in our second printing, but it is a different kind of book than you're a memoirist first and foremost, although now you're branching out and writing some children's books and whatnot. I'm a novelist first and foremost, although I'm also branching out into other areas, right? But we both knew this would be a different kind of book.
But it's an interesting thing, right? You have two women editors of color.
Yes.
Of Asian women and a black woman, right?
Right.
So already we have, like, for example, on the night of our launch on our Facebook page, a white man with a gun as his profile photo posted on the page, why are you deleting the experiences of black women? So on one level, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with a professor who says, because his piece, Baby in a Blender, is unacceptable, like your stupid collection, right? We're dealing with that.
Yeah.
We're dealing with the gender, the race, the class, and then we're dealing with this very taboo topic
Yeah.
that a lot of women, who even those who've experienced it, are afraid to speak of.
Yeah.
It is astounding to me how many elderly women at our meetings come up and
It's
they share
mostly
their
elderly
stories,
women who
yes,
come.
because they haven't forgotten, because their bodies have not forgotten.
Your body doesn't forget.
No,
Exactly.
it will never forget.
In a world that wants you to pretend you're okay,
All the
and
time.
that you're whole, enough to do everything else that is expected of women, particularly women of color and Native women.
I was recently asked, why can't you get past it? And I
Yeah.
said,
Oh my God.
And I said, I look at I haven't lost the pregnancy weight, so it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's just a part of me that psychologically just doesn't want to deal with it, etc. But I just bluntly turned to her and I said, well, I look in the mirror and my body is a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
The clothes start fitting you, blah, 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 etc. I tend to say blah, 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 we do. Will there be another book? Because I'm pretty sure you must have had
We always have.
essays. That must have been so difficult to cull through all those essays.
It wasn't. We always say too that, this was the project, it was too big for one person.
Yeah.
So we're very thankful that we got to work with each other.
With each other.
Yeah, and we always, both of us have a lot of projects in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So,
But this is a necessary book, and I
This
think
is
that
a-
Shannon and I
absolutely.
both gravitate toward books that are necessary.
Yes.
And yes, it's fun to write about great adventure sitting by the pool drinking mojitos, right? We're not doing what we're doing because it is fun or easy.
No.
We're doing what we are doing because we believe very much. And so, but because publishing is like every other industry in this country, right? Supply and demand.
Of course.
So we need women to pick it up. We need women to tell us that this book matters and that it has a place in their lives.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm going to put all those links up. You all know about that. I'm just so deeply grateful, so honored that the two of you are here. Not that I'm punning off your headline, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
what God has honored you. Please pick up this book if you know of someone, if you are going through a loss yourself, if you know of someone going through a loss, this is a great book. Or reach out to them. Just ask them how they are doing today. Okay, it's a chances that they would love to hear your voice. A little bit of kindness goes a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shannon.
Kalia.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.